The zoom range is hugely practical from 17mm wide angle to 70mm telephoto. Let me show you what it means in real life. Let's take one picture. Hi guys, my name is Matti Sulanto and I'm a photographer. And in this video I'm gonna take a look at this brand new Tamron 17-70mm F2.8 zoom lens for Fuji cameras. But first, the disclaimer, this lens is on loan from Focus Nordic Finland, and I'd like to say big thanks to Focus Nordic for lending me this lens so I can make this video for you guys. So this is the brand new Tamron 17-70mm F2.8 for Fuji cameras. And I have to say that this year 2022 has been a pretty good year for Fuji shooters regarding third-party lenses. And when I'm recording this, we're only about halfway through the year. And as far as I know, this is the only third-party standard zoom option for Fuji cameras when I'm recording this video. So I think this is a pretty welcome option for everyone using Fuji cameras. I also like the build quality a lot. Everything is nice and tight, no unnecessary free play, no zoom creep if I hold it like this, and this lens is really lightweight for the size, but it doesn't feel like cheap lightweight, it feels more like a high quality lightweight product. Very nice build quality indeed, and on top of that it's also weather sealed, so if your camera body is also weather sealed, you should be able to shoot in some less ideal conditions too if things happen to go that way. This Tamron 17-70mm actually feels quite well balanced even on a small camera body like the XD30 that I have here. But if I'm really honest, this combo feels a little bit nose heavy, but it's not too bad because the Tamron, even though it looks kind of big, it's not nearly as heavy as it looks. This weighs in only at about 550 grams with a hood. So it's quite nice. However, if I was choosing a lens for travel photography, I think I'd want something a little bit smaller still, like the same range maybe, but with an f4 maximum constant aperture. I think it would be much nicer for travel photography. This f2.8 is of course very handy for low light, a little bit more shallow depth of field bokeh kind of things, but I think for travel this would be a little bit too big, at least for me. The feature set on this lens is pretty basic. There are no buttons or switches, and this lens is also not compatible with the excellent Tamron Lens Utility app, which I have covered in a separate video. I'll put it up here just in case you're interested. I'd really like the possibility to customize the focus ring for aperture control because I very seldom use manual focus, and the ring as it is pretty much serves no purpose. This lens also has a stabilizer, optical stabilizer, which adds a lot to the low light capabilities. However, right now it's almost the midsummer over here in Helsinki, and we have something like 20 hours of daylight, so I can't really test the stabilizer in any real life situations. However, I took some test pictures inside at 70mm focal length, the telephoto end of this zoom. And my hit rate was pretty good at quarter of a second exposure time. Not 100%, but it was quite easy to get sharp pictures handheld. But when I used longer shutter speeds, my hit rate dropped, but I was still able to get acceptably sharp pictures at 1 second exposure time and 70mm focal length. So it's a pretty decent result, I think, for an optical stabilizer and at 70mm. The zoom range is hugely practical, from 17mm wide angle to 70mm telephoto. Let me show you what it means in real life. Let's take one picture at 17mm and another one at 70mm. As you can see, it's very practical, and it equals roughly to about 25 to 105 in full frame terms. The autofocus is fast, reliable and silent. No complaints. And this lens can also capture some nice and tight close-ups, but of course it's not a macro lens. The best magnification ratio seems to come at around 24mm, and then the distance from the front element to the subject is roughly 60mm. Alright, let's make a simple video autofocus test. The camera is my Fuji X-T30. The lens is at 35mm, wide open. I'm shooting 4K 25 frames per second, and I'll put my autofocus settings here on the screen so you can see what kind of settings I'm using on my Fuji X-T30. Optically, this lens is really solid in my opinion, and all my pictures turned out really nice, sharp and crispy and contrasty. And if that was not the case, it was entirely my fault and not the lens's fault. I think the backlight performance is quite not the best I've ever seen, but I wouldn't call it bad either. Obviously the distortions and vignetting and some of those things are electronically corrected, but it doesn't really matter to me as long as the end result looks good, and it looks good on this Tamron 17-70mm. I think this is a great new option for all Fuji users, and I've had a really good time with this lens. Even though I'm not really a zoom lover, I prefer prime lenses, but still all my pictures came out really nice. The zoom range is really practical. The aperture is relatively fast, f2.8, constant f2.8. The stabilizer works really well for both photos and video. And I don't have any major complaints about this lens. This should be available early July 2022, and the price should be around 800 euros or US dollars. So if you're looking for a standard zoom lens for your Fuji camera and you'd like a little bit more affordable option than the Fuji first-party options, then this is worth a look, definitely. Thank you so much for watching, and if you found this useful, please consider buying me a cup of coffee. There's a link down below for that too, if you don't live in Finland. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.